sins. In Jesus' name, amen. And when a great multitude had gathered, and others had come to him from every city, he spoke by parable. A sower went to sow his seed, and as he sowed, some fell by the wayside, and it was trampled down, and the birds of the air devoured it. Some fell on rock, and as soon as it sprang up, it withered away because it lacked moisture. And some fell among thorns, and the thorns sprang up, and with it choked it. But others fell on good ground, sprang up, and yielded a crop 100-fold. When he had said these things, he cried, "He who has ears, let him hear." We're all familiar with that parable, and the thing about parables is their simplicity helps us in whatever stage or whatever level of maturity that we're in, that we can gain something by it, even in its most base form. If we just take it literally, word for word, and look at it that way, we understand it. Our children can understand it. Anybody that hears those can understand it. But Jesus explained it even further to his disciples. They didn't get it. I think they understood the principle of it. It would be foolish of us to think that they didn't understand the principle of what he was saying, because it was just that simple. But they knew Jesus well enough to know that there was something deeper that he meant, and something more that that he expected them to know of it. And in their unsurety, they questioned, and he helped them and gave them some answers. A little bit about this book. The Seed Principle is a down-to-earth guide for getting control of your life. More precisely, it explains how you can sow the life of your dreams. Drawing inspiration from the parable of the sower, this book reveals 8 proven strategies for harvesting a more abundant life. The parable of the sower has many layers, and on the surface it provides hope for evangelists who wonder if their labors will bear fruit. On a deeper level, it is the story about success. Have you ever thought about the parable being a story about success? The last thing, and it increased 100-fold. That is the part about success. It identifies the obstacles you face when trying to influence others, and it sheds light on how you can make desirable changes in your own life. Using the farming analogy, Jesus explained the process of human growth and attaining goals. You can apply the principles in a short-sighted, worldly way, which is the most base way that we were talking about in the farming, or you can, or as they were intended to develop a greatness of the soul. In either case, the principles work. How you use them is your choice. In this parable, Jesus explodes 2 popular myths about the success. And I thought explodes, maybe that was a typo, but I read on, and he does mean that. He explodes the popular myths about success. Before we go any further, what is one of the myths about success? Who is? Yes, ma'am. And those are actually some of the things we're going to talk about that it was intended. But the world looks at things mostly as if somebody's got all this wealth and all these riches, first of all, they are. I'm sorry? They're successful. They got that way because they're lucky. That's not what Jesus is talking about here, and we do. We look at it that way. You know, it's either luck or well, let's go ahead and read what he says, and he'll explain it better than I certainly can. In the parable, Jesus explodes the 2 popular myths. It's either luck or genius. Luck or genius. What do you think might be better than luck? Because what happens with luck? It eventually runs out, don't it? It does. And genius is rare, isn't it? What would you rather have than luck or genius? Talent. Hard work, talent, dedication.
God, because God's the only way to be successful.
The only way. And
don't get me wrong, there's some people that are not godly that are successful.
Right.
Many anytime that we are successful, we need to thank God for it.
Absolutely right. And success has two layers. The success that we're talking about has two layers. Is first of all, we naturally go to the worldly part of it. We see, riches and big houses and lots of land and all these things. But that's where we're going with this. Because it's going to talk a lot about, and a lot of what the writer here, Aubrey Johnson, talks about is the wisdom teachings. And if you're familiar with the wisdom teaching, what are some of the books in the Bible that go towards the wisdom teachings? Proverbs especially is the wisdom teaching. And we get, I'm jumping way ahead, but we read Proverbs and we get all this, and it's cause and effect, and if you do this, this is going to happen, and all that. And the way Proverbs is written, it's kind of like it's written in stone. If that happens, this will happen. Is that the case? What did he say in Ecclesiastes? After he did all that in Proverbs, what is Ecclesiastes about? Vanity of vanities. All of these things. None of these things. You can't make a gain and you can't make a loss. God does all of those things. So I think even Solomon and all of his great wisdom, he understood that, especially in the end. I don't know when he was writing Proverbs if he truly understood it as good as he needed to. I think he would. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right, the secrets is the next page here, and I wish I had a book for everybody, but you'll have to just bear with me. Section 1 of this book highlights 4 spiritual laws. And what is a law? What is a natural law? You remember your science? Can we change a natural law? Cannot change a natural law. It just is. It's God said it. It's going to be that way. God set it, S-E-T, set it. It's going to be that way every single time. And we're going to talk about some laws that Aubrey says that apply to these things. They're called laws because they are unbreakable life principles that regulate all of God's creation. Those who ignore these concepts are continually confused and frustrated by life. Those who learn these laws and put them to good use exercise more control over their lives and enjoy immense blessings as a result. All right, the first he says is the law of the seed. And the law of the seed reveals the principle of causation. What is causation?
When you plant it, you water it, you take care of it.
I'm sorry?
When you plant it, you water it, you till it, you take care of it.
That's right. Causation explains why things happen the way that they happen. We don't use causation too much, but we do say cause and effect a lot, don't we? It explains why things happen as they do. The law of cause and effect rules the material world, but it is no less potent in the spiritual world. Galatians 6:7. What does it say? Anybody remember right off?
What you say, basically.
Anyway, we read what we sow.
It is. It's just exactly that simple. We reap what we sow. We reap what we sow. So the seed in the parable cannot be changed. And we're talking about the seed. It's the good seed. It's the thing that you want for the end. It gets mixed with other things. It gets put in the wrong place. But the seed is constant. It is the law in this particular thing here, in this particular thought that he's going. The next law is the law of the sower. And who's the sower? That's the farmer. That's the one that's putting out the seed. That's the one that's living our lives. That's the one that's making decisions for ourselves. It's not about somebody else. It's us and our individual self and our individual responsibility. But the sower shows the possibility of creation. Character and circumstances are largely self-constructed. You all agree with that? Character and circumstances are largely self-constructed. You don't agree with that?
I think God sets it up.
Yes, ma'am. Within His laws, that's what it's. Yes, ma'am. Within His laws, we can choose. You know, we all have the same. We all have the same level playing field as far as what's available, right? But we can choose the hard way, the rough way, the inconsistent way, the lazy way. We can choose all those things and have less than desirable results, right? But so we do largely control our circumstances. There are certainly other things in that mix because if you're in a family, you can only do you, and you can only be responsible for you in the personal sense. But you're still affected by your family. You're still affected by the people you work with. You're still affected by the laws of the land and the things that go on around us and all. So there are opposing forces pulling and pushing. But basically, and especially through the wisdom teachings, you do control. If you do good things, what's going to happen to you? Good things are going to happen to you or for you. That's the wisdom teachings. We know that's oversimplistic, but it is still what he's talking about here. All right, then the next law, let's see. Humans shape their lives and control their destinies through their day-to-day decisions. Today's choices are the seeds of tomorrow's happiness or regret. Choose wisely. Galatians 6:8, somebody. And stay there when you get there. Galatians 6:8.
For he who sows to his flesh will of the flesh reap corruption, but he who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life.
Okay, that's the first hint of where we're actually going in the end of all this. With the wisdom teachings and the reason that the wisdom teachings aren't always, the set in stone, chiseled, you do this is going to happen kind of thing. Because what we look at is in the worldly sense. If we make good decisions here, we're gonna be blessed. We're gonna prosper. We're gonna have good health. We're gonna have, our families are gonna be safe. We all know that that's not the case. Unfortunately, our little ones get sick. Our children die before it's their time. We have tragedies and we have losses. So we know that sometimes you can do all the things in the world that you can look at right, but bad things happen to us. But what's the last part of that verse? So we sow it to the flesh. What happens to the flesh? The flesh will corrupt. It will rot. It will be gone. But the last part there?
He who sows to the Spirit will of the Spirit reap everlasting life.
That's the success that we're looking for. And that's the success that Jesus wanted the disciples to understand when he was teaching them the parable of the sower. It was much deeper than the simple message on the front of it, which in itself is a good message. But that's what he wanted you. You're going to have trials and you're going to have tribulations. You're going to have things that happen to you. But if you're doing the things sincerely and to the best of your ability, following God's commands, you're not guaranteed. We sing the song all the time. God has not promised. God hadn't promised us, skies always blue and the rain when we need it and all. But he has promised that life everlasting and that life everlasting with him. And that's where we're working towards. And that's the reason we need to choose wisely. Then
sometimes we forget that the devil is right here among us just like God is. And that I'm not saying he has control over God or anything like that. But he does have a lot of, control, and sometimes I think we blame God when we need to be blaming the devil.
You're exactly right. And it's hard for us to grasp and understand, but who has dominion here? God has allowed the devil to have dominion here.
He puts the temptation upon us.
That's right. Yep.
And even if he tempts us, as long as we do right, and even if like those bad things, we could easily ask God why Ray and Jane had to have cancer. And it would have been even harder to understand that had she not been blessed with healing. But, I mean, that was just something that now we can look back and see that God had his hand in all of it the whole time, and that so much has come from that. But, I mean, even if, you know, we had lost her here on earth, we still would have known that, you know, we had to continue to live right so that we could be with her again one day.
Right. And you know, and all of us have been shown these things here even lately and stuff, and the tremendous comfort that we have in hope, you know, and not, once again, not the wishful thinking hope, but that blessed assurance. When you have that blessed assurance, you know, when these tragedies happen, how much more comforting is that? Even as horrible as it is and the things that you're going through at the time, you know, I can't imagine those who don't have that. I don't understand how they can get through the next moment. Then the next one is the law of the soil. And this demonstrates the prudence of cultivation. I think this is the one that we probably miss the most, and Randy will tell you probably means the most in how whether or not you're going to be successful or not. You know, I think anybody, which is obvious in the parable, anybody can throw a seed. You can throw it out there on the hard path and let the birds get it, or you can throw it amongst the rocks and it'll come up a little bit, but it wasn't prepared. You didn't move the rocks, you didn't till the soil, you didn't have it ready and all those things balanced and fertilized. But if you prepared that soil and get that 100-fold increase, you know, that comes from the cultivation. That comes from the hard work. That's what we as Christians, that's our job, isn't it? That's what we should be doing. You know, it's not just...
People don't quite understand about the sowing of the seed. There's a lot of work that goes into that before that we're going to go out here and sow the seed. There's a lot of preparation that's got to be made before we do that. We got to prepare the soil. We got to make sure it's fertilized as it should be, and then we can expect something good to come from it. You can't go out there and just sow the seed in a bare field and expect to have a good crop.
That's right, and I think he takes it even, that's absolutely right, but he takes it even further in what he wants us to think about here. Once we get that done, we're actually pretty good at that. You know, we'll work hard at all that because that's the exciting part. That's the front end of this thing, and that's exciting, and we like to get out and we like to do big things. You know, we've talked about here lots of times, you know, we're really good at the big things, but we drop the ball sometimes on the busy things, on the little things. But I think just as important as preparing, and I think that's one of the concepts he's wanting us to get here, just as important as preparing it ahead of time is the work that we continue to do with it. I know JW has told us, I've heard him say to me, and I'm pretty sure I've heard him say it standing up here before, but their work in Panama and what they do there. And I can't remember exactly the story, but he's, you know, somebody was asking him about, you know, why this and why that, and he said, and they told him, said, well, y'all are the first ones that came here and taught us. But then you come back and keep teaching us, and you come back and you keep loving us.
You talk about preparing the soil. You find this out in mission work. You got to go and meet people where they are.
Right.
You do the same here, of course. But you got to lay the groundwork, see what they know, where they're coming from, you know, where they believe the Bible, and work from there. You lay the groundwork, and eventually, hopefully, you'll have a Bible study. And you're baptized into Christ, and that's just the beginning. And we do the same here in the States. We turn them loose, and we go to the next one. But we try to, in Panama, we try to do the follow-up. As a matter of fact, we go back next week. That's one of the reasons we're going there. Do some follow-up on some things we've already done. But that's what we found in our efforts, whether it be locally or in foreign field. In mission work, we don't mind, like I said, we don't mind laying the groundwork, we don't mind the cultivation, we don't mind planting the seed and seeing the harvest. But once we got that seed up, we go on to the next one. And we let it dry on the vine and whatever expression we want to use. And that happens a lot.
What's your theory on why we might do that, or any of you? What's your theory on why we're good at the front end of that, but we don't We're not good at the other end of it, the cultivating part, the continuing.
We got the accomplishment, and then we got the.
Yeah.
I
Too much of her.
Too much for her, for sure.
I put too much emphasis on, we got a great commission to go and to preach and or to teach and baptize, and we stop with that.
Yeah,
The rest
right.
of that commission is
Right.
teaching them to observe all things what I'm commanded you. So that's where we drop the ball.
Yeah.
And that's where the real work comes in.
It is. That's where that's where the work comes in. That's when in the dry season you have to set up irrigation and you work night and day, 24 hours a day. That's when it's cold this weekend, you still got to be out tending to the cows and feeding and watering. That's when if you do what we do, that's when you got to go and fix those busted pipes, because even though it's very uncomfortable and I don't want to be doing it, the people that live there depend on that. We have to do it. It's responsibility, I believe. We don't really like having to be responsible for something after a while, do we? Because it costs us. Mostly it costs us what? It costs us time.
I'm all about,
You follow the provide. It's not, should be our responsibility to go and teach some of you so.
Right.
Quick.
Right.
And not just bring them in and say, well, we're glad to have you.
That's right. And we need to do that. We certainly need, but we got to continue. But the other thing that JW said is what I think we miss so much, and it is so simple. We all got to start where we are. And that's the new one coming in that knows nothing. And if we need to make ourselves better, that's where we are too. If we need to be better, we're here. We can't do nothing about yesterday and last year and 10 years ago. But what we do have control over, and what we do have control over as far as our lives are, is what happens from here forward. So we have to meet those that come in where they are. And that's so simple to say, but we just don't do it. We expect sometimes too much of somebody that just don't know. And it's our responsibility to help them to understand that. And they may come a time when you do have to have a really, really tough conversation with them. But it's not to start with, is it?
we need to work as hard on keeping the same saved.
That, right,
And,
absolutely.
I'm not saying I'm all about mission work,
Right.
Once, but it's just, sometimes I think we just, and even those of us been in church our whole life, there are times when we get down, we feel like, I'm not moving ahead, I'm not necessarily moving back, but I'm not moving ahead. And, I mean, you still need encouragement no matter whether you've been in the church one day or 100 years.
That's exactly right. And we all set ourselves up to trip over everything. Sometimes, well, they're not consulting me, and I don't have no say in it. And then next week, well, I'm having to do everything. We're on both sides of it, and you can't be on both sides of it. The truth is somewhere right there in the middle, and you just need to do the thing that you're doing that's right. And we don't need to get, was it Jeremiah, or which one of them was it? He was wailing and carrying on, and he was the, I'm the only one left. Was it Jeremiah? Isaiah, only one left. And God told him, nope. I've set aside 1,000 who've not, bowed their knees to bow. Elijah, that's right. That there's 1,000. There was a time, though, then there was one fellow left, and he was by himself. You remember who he is? That he truly was the only one. And that's right. We talked about that with the other day with Case in his lesson. Why didn't God go ahead right then and destroy Adam and Eve? Because they did that out of their ignorance and didn't have, it wasn't evil. But then some centuries later, he decided that that's it. But it was because that was everybody. It was I think it says, what is it? The every thought and intent was for evil. I'm sorry. Continually. That's right. What happens when that happens? Is irredeemable, isn't it? And God just couldn't. And we see this world, and we see all the problems in this world right now, and I'm like, that's what Case was saying. I truly believe, and well, I can't just believe it the Bible says it. The only reason God hadn't come back today is for what? What? Give us a chance. He's long-suffering. He does not want anyone to perish. And as long as there's hope for us, as long as we're striving, as long as somebody somewhere is striving, God's going to preserve this until He deems it's time to bring us
Yeah,
on.
that's something even closer than mission work. And since I'm an old lady now, I realize this. I see all these little heads bobbing in here when they come. And I'm thinking, Lord, don't let us miss this opportunity. Let's have these classes, let's be teachers, let's be examples, and let's teach them the gospel. Let's teach them when they're little to they get older. We're losing so many.
Yes.
And I am so excited about our teaching program now because we're learning how to teach these children, and we have people that want to do that and that are so devoted. And when they get older, if we've not grounded them and they don't have anything to look forward to, they don't think, because they've not been taught,
Right.
we've lost them.
That's right.
And so we just got to pick up and do that. It's got to be our
Yes, ma'am.
mission, is our own.
That's right. And we got to do that first we got to do that as parents. And the most basic thing is come to Bible study. Come to Bible study on time. Have your children excited to be here, awake and ready to go in and be a part of what's going on, because we got teachers that are working really, really hard. That's exactly. That's exactly right. And then other thing is what we can do, and it's part of cultivation here, I think, is we see these teachers that are working really hard. We know who they are. We know their names. They're not wasting. But have we been to them and says, such and such, I see what you're doing and I love you for it and thank you for it. They do not. They do, but we can encourage them by doing those things, because so many times you get to thinking, well, nobody appreciate you. May never even mention it, and you may never even let it come to the forefront of your head. But I guarantee you, somewhere back there, they that could give encouragement to somebody. That's right. Yes, ma'am.
We especially need to reach out to college kids. When they leave home and leave the church, we need
right.
to keep in touch.
That's right. That's right.
A letter from this church would be fantastic for them to keep touch.
It surely would. And in this world and this time, it's a whole lot easier to even do that and stay in touch and give them a little bit of encouragement every day. We can certainly do that. I'm not sure that's the direction I meant to go, but there we were. All right, and then we get down to, let's see, where was that? The soil. Okay, cultivation. All right, wise people know that potential must be cultivated to yield its precious fruits. As a result, they tend their souls with the meticulous care of a master gardener. The condition of the heart is the most important factor in producing healthy human growth. Prepare yours well. What are we just mentioned that in our broad discussion, but I had a question written over here on the side. What are some ways that we can cultivate as a church? Just basic ways. What are ways that we can? I wrote down just a few. I wonder what yours.
Show each other we love each other. It's the main
That's right.
thing.
It is. We get back to the thing that I just said. The most basic thing is come to worship, come to Bible study. That's how we cultivate. That's how we gain, and that's very basic. We can do those things. Yeah, that's right. Be careful what we watch and see and listen to. We're gonna when he threw the demons out, if you didn't put something good in, the demons will come back and they're going to bring company. We need to put good things in. We need to fill our minds, our thoughts with good and positive things. Be careful what you read. Be careful who your friends are. If your friends are pulling you away, it doesn't matter how good they are, how much you depend on them. If they're pulling you away from where you need to be, if there's activities that you like, and they'll pull you away from Bible study or church, or pull your children away from it, stop doing it. Get away from it. You have that responsibility first individually and then for your family. Moms and dads, you know this is so important. Our jobs. Sometimes you may just need to change jobs, and that's hard to do, would be really hard. It'd be really scary to do sometimes, but sometimes if it's just making you constantly be around people that don't help you, it's keeping you away from worship like it needs to. It's keeping you away from your family like it needs to. You may need to make those changes or make some modifications. These things are pretty simple if you think about them, but they're really hard to do in practice lots of the time.
When you read about Joseph and Daniel and the hardships they went through, but yet they prospered in everything they did because their hearts sought God.
That's right.
And our children can see us doing that. They may fall away. But with prayer and stick-to-itiveness, they can come back.
Yes, ma'am. All right, then there's the law of the sickle. And what happens with the sickle?
Harvest.
That's the harvest. That's the reward, isn't it?
Right.
If you've done all these other things correctly, that's the reward. It underscores the power of continuation. While we're still at Galatians 6, read verse 9.
Let us not be weary in well doing, for in due season we shall reap if we faint not.
Don't let it overwhelm you. In due season we will reap. And what is the great reaping that we're looking for? What is the great reward? What is the harvest that we want to be a part of?
What we've sown. And hopefully we've sown after the Spirit, talking about there in verse 8. And we're going to reap eternal life.
Yep.
Hopefully ever.
That's exactly right. The key to success is perseverance. What's perseverance?
Keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on. I don't know why, and it probably didn't even come from that movie, but every time I see perseverance, I see that Cherokee Indian dude and the outlaw Josie Wales when he was giving his... do I endeavor to be... You know the line. I see that every time I see perseverance. That picture pop, and I don't even remember the discussion, but they were proud of... He was proud of something, even in all their afflictions and all, but endeavor to persevere. It's weird, the things that pops in your head. I don't know why that pops in. And you're even weirder than I am because you remember it too. Yep. Persevere.
Things like that, it helps you remember to persevere.
Right. And we're not good at that, are we? To keep on keeping on. We let things get in our way. We get to thinking the load's too heavy and we're pulling it by ourselves. Because the harvest comes at the end of the growing season. What is reaped on that day is determined by the seeds you've sown and the opportunities that you have blown. Confidence is the law of sowing and reaping. Confidence in the law of sowing and reaping inspires consistent effort and endurance.
What happens to your crop if you don't sow much seed?
Right.
You don't have a very big crop.
Right. And we put it in the ground having what? That it's going to increase.
No.
Having that faith, don't we? That is our reward. That is the confidence that we can have in it.
You think about us as Christians. We sing that song where we sow the seed in the kingdom, brother. Are we? And can we look back on our lives and see how many people that we've influenced to come to Christ because we've sown the seed? And it may be that you sow the seed, somebody else waters it, but God's going to be the one to give the increase to it. But our job is to sow the seed. Our duty is to sow the seed.
Right. And it doesn't matter. And I always go back to this. Andrew is one of my favorite people in the Bible.
Yeah.
And we don't know a lot about him. He's only really a couple of different stories, a couple of different times in there where he's speaking. But what did Andrew do? Did he bring the whole world to Christ? As far as we know, we don't know what else he might have done, but did he bring the whole world to Jesus? Did he preach amazing sermons and have 3,000 plus people baptized all at one time? Did he do that?
He brought the man that did.
He brought the man that did. That's right. He brought his brother, Peter. there's a couple of different lessons there. First of all, who should we be looking for first? We need to be looking at our brother and our sister and our mom and our dad and our family. We need to go to them first. That's how important it was for Andrew. Andrew was the one looking. Peter was off fishing somewhere, but he went and got him. Here's the one that we've been looking for. And then what's the other story about Andrew? What story? What's the other time that we see Andrew talking? What else did he do? Y'all remember? When he's the one that brought the loaves and the fishes? When he found them and brought them to Jesus. Didn't know what was going to happen with him, but he brought them up. He had enough faith that Jesus could do something with it. If I'm wrong, Case, you can tell me Sunday, but I think that's the other lesson that we get from Andrew. So, but otherwise, we don't know a lot about him and from him. We don't have to bring 3,000 at a time. We don't have to preach these big fiery sermons and have, but the one that you bring, that might be the one that does all these wonderful and good works. Your child that you raise up to be that person, it might be the one. We can all do something. It's not to say that we shouldn't strive to be the one that can preach those big lessons, but we shouldn't limit ourselves on anything, because sometimes one's enough. One's what we can do. Therefore, the key to success is to sow prudently, plentifully, and persistently. And which success is it talking about ultimately here? Is it the success in this life? It's the success in the life to come, in our day of judgment, and our reward that well done. That's all the wisdom teachings in the Bible, and there's other wisdom teachings throughout secular history, and it was always line for line, cause and effect kind of deal. But it didn't always work that way. It is a good principle of life. All the Proverbs, I enjoy reading Proverbs. It makes the common sense. I understand it, all these things. But if you look at it always literal, and then when that fails, then you'll say, well, that's not accurate. You got to understand what he's truly talking about here. And it is, this life is not the one that we're striving towards or working towards. And then we get to, I ain't even got to the lesson. I'm still on the introduction. I'm sorry. Time for the bell? Uh-oh. Well, section 2 is the soils. In gardening and landscaping, soil condition can accurately predict whether plants will die, survive, or thrive. Jesus identified 4 kinds of ground, and he explained how each one affects the growth of that seed. He used these soils to represent states of the soul. I really wanted to get to one of these. Maybe one day we'll get to one of these. Is hard ground. Think about it for a minute. I'm going to skip ahead because I want to get here. Hard ground, that kind of describes the insensitivity of those and the unawareness that we have. We just go through life not really thinking about the consequences of things. And then the rocky ground, it depicts the condition of the uncommitted. Then the thorny ground represents those who are unfocused. Their good intentions get lost in a maze of competing interests. And then the fourth one is the good ground that we talked about. Of these 4, hard ground, rocky ground, thorny ground, good ground, where do you see the problem in the church? Or do you see a problem in the church? Where would we fit in? And I say we, generally speaking. Which one of these? Is it the hard ground? Is it the insensitivity?
A lot of times we like the thorns, the song of the thorns. We like the things of this life.
That's when I was reading this, and that's where my mind went with this. But the thorny ground represents those who are unfocused. Their good intentions get lost in a maze of competing interests. Does that describe us? Most definitely describes us. Let's work on that one for sure. Thank y'all.
Come on in here.